this feels really good. This feels really good to show other people what is possible, what you can do, and that you can survive all these things and not only survive, but of course thrive and like
Yeah.
keep becoming better, keep opening up to life, keep, you know, becoming your brightest self. And
Yeah.
I am a true believer in that. 100%.
Guys, I'm super excited to have Amy Edwards join us for the Ripple Effect podcast. Amy is a fellow podcast host. She has the Amy Edwards Show. You can find it on Spotify or go to her website, amyedwards.com, to learn how to follow her and take advantage of many of the awesome resources that she provides. I've been following her on social media for a while, and I got to tell you, she just brings a unique energy and enthusiasm, one that is truly infectious. And I'm super excited for her to be on the show today. So let's dive in. Amy, thanks for joining the Ripple Effect podcast. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much for having me, Steve. I'm so excited to be here. I'm doing well today. I'm having a quiet day after a lot of craziness in Austin.
Were you affected by the weather too bad with all the ice and just the frigid temperatures we had unexpectedly descend on Austin?
No, the worst part for me was I think my kids being home from school 4 days. So just here, my place is like it's been full of teenagers quite a bit. No,
Oh,
I live in a like fortunate spot near several different hospitals, and so we don't
wow.
usually lose power, and plus we weren't hit with anything too hard.
Well, that's good. That's good. Yeah, that not everybody could be that fortunate, but we kind of
I
were the same
know.
way because we didn't lose power, but we had a lot of tree damage, which was disappointing. But these things happen, right?
I guess they do, and it's all like, how are you going to deal with it and roll with the things that are life,
Yep.
right?
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about this as we were leading up to this interview because you are one of those people that really looks for all the positives. So, I was telling our audience in the introduction that you're just someone that I have really admired and followed. I love your upbeat positivity. And so, maybe just as a good place to start, I'm all about origin story. So, how did you kind of become the badass that you are right now? I mean, you are blazing new trails and inspiring so many. I'm just really anxious to learn about your life story a little bit.
Wow, that's a very kind intro. Thank you so much. It, like warms my heart to think that things I'm doing are having that ripple effect. And, you know, and what we see is not always exactly correct, right? Like, what we're seeing on social media, like, yeah, it probably looks like I always find the positive, but of course, it's a practice,
Yep.
just like everything else. It is
Yep.
totally a practice for me and something that I'm training myself to do. And the origin story of that, I think, is I don't know. I think part of it's my personal makeup
Yeah.
because I've always really been drawn to speaking out about things. And the more I've looked back at who I was when I was really young, I think that I was, a cute little girl with curly hair and the youngest in my family and the shortest in my family. And well, I guess my mom was shorter, and I think that I felt like I wasn't really heard. And I think that a lot of what I do comes from that and comes from speaking my truth and getting a mic in front of my face and hoping that it's going to resonate with someone else to speak their truth.
Yeah.
And that's part of my MO as far as Ripple goes,
Yeah.
And so I started in radio because I was always really drawn to that. But in college, I studied philosophy, religion, and worked at the college radio
Yeah.
station, and then immediately went to work in radio right afterwards. So that's a lot of my origin and a lot of what fuels what I do now because those parts fit together so well, and I didn't understand how they fit together at the time. And that's one of the beautiful things too is giving yourself grace that all your puzzle pieces are going to fit together one of these days,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we may not know why at the time. I didn't know why I was working in radio and, just like country music radio too, not like,
Yeah.
anything crazy. And yet still drawn to these bigger concepts of life and how they're going to interact one day. And so I've done, I've just turned 50. And so over the course of my life, I've done all sorts of things that pushed me and made me recognize that I wanted to be my best version and
Yeah.
whatever that looks like. And that's always improving. And so I think personally, I've gotten 2 divorces. I've been married twice and divorced twice, which I never would have seen coming for myself. I never would have guessed that. And I have 2 daughters, one from each marriage. And I think that that made me recognize a lot of things about myself and try to understand, what am I doing? Why weren't those relationships working? What was it about me that was looking for something different? And
Yeah.
so I had to do a lot of self work around that. And that has fueled everything that I do, really. And speaking about that and being honest about it.
Well, I'm curious. So, could you explain a little bit about as you started to go down that self discovery path? I mean, what was it that sort of inspired you? What did you learn about that at that time? Did you, lean in one direction or the other based on where you found your inspiration during that period of kind of self discovery?
I think that I started just saying yes to things that came my way. And
That's a good thing.
there's a
Yeah.
lot of beauty in that, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah. And sometimes you just have to sort of trust that life is showing you a path that you can follow and just let go. And that's not always easy. Again, like I said in the beginning, it's a practice, and
Sure.
letting go is a practice. Anytime that you're going to step into trusting what you're being shown, trusting your intuition, all those things are not just something that you just do,
Right.
right? There's
Right.
something that comes with practice. And so these are things that I still have to do every day. Like
Yep.
I did it today. Like I did it just this morning, and I was like, it's okay. Just put one foot in front of the other and keep trusting that you're being led. And the more you do it, it's like a muscle, the more that it gets easier.
Yeah.
And I just started to see a lot of synchronicities in my life. And the more I worked on myself, the more I tried to really look at myself as the problem, not the outside world, the better and easier and more in flow that life got.
Yeah.
And that has continually surprised me. And there's a certain beauty to that, as far as you hold a lot more power than you can give yourself credit for
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah, and
Would you
that works
agree?
both in the positive and the negative, right? That power can
Right.
be kind of a double-edged sword.
Yeah. I mean, it really is. I was just thinking about that today. I was thinking about like creating a post around the fact that sometimes you see all these things that are like, you're the only one holding you back. And you're like, damn it, what am I doing wrong? And then you're like, but wait, I actually hold all this power. And that's a really beautiful thing.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
yeah.
and you're really good, I think, for the folks that follow you online. I mean, you're really good at helping people recognize that. I think it's great because I think it's one thing to hear it and, like you said, to see these posts, but it's a completely different thing when you see someone who's actually been through, some rough patches that have struggled in certain areas and have come out on the other side saying, "Hey, look, I'm not innocent in this. I've had, a hand in some of the things that have happened, but here's how I've dealt with it. Here's how I've been able to come through it." And I think that becomes so much more motivational for people who are looking for someone like you as that guide that can say, "Hey, look, just keep putting that one foot in front of the other." I think it's tremendous.
I hope so. That's really what I've been motivated towards since I turned 50. Because I was
Yeah.
like, hey, this feels really good. This feels really good to show other people what is possible, what you can do, and that you can survive all these things and not only survive, but of course, thrive and like
Yeah.
keep becoming better, keep opening up to life, keep, you know, becoming your brightest self. And
Yeah.
I am a true believer in that. 100%.
I love it. Well, so going back a little bit, what inspired you to move towards radio when you first chose that as kind of your career path?
Is it wrong to say Casey Kasem? Like
No, no.
the American Top 40?
Oh
No,
man, yeah.
I know, right? Keep your feet on the ground and keep reaching for the stars, Steve.
Yeah.
And yeah, you know what? It's just I don't know. It was just like I really truly think it was being heard, and I felt like, oh, they're getting heard. So how can I do that? And this is like a
Yeah.
recent realization. I think in the last few years I've realized this, and so I really just think that it was this impulse to be heard, and it felt good to like be recognized and and have a good time with it and
Yeah.
not take it too seriously. And I think that that radio background helps me a lot with rolling in the moment, with keeping things fun and light, with
Yeah.
listening. I think that there's a lot of beauty to that background. And the older I get, the more I appreciate my background. And I think that that's something that I hope I can help people recognize in themselves too, is that whatever your background is, it has a lot of beauty to it. And you just sometimes just need to step back a bit into some awareness to where
Yeah.
you can say, whoa, that is cool. And that has fed this deep desire in me, and it has made me who I am, and it is my path in life. And I like am so moved by voice, and it's all about voice being heard, and ultimately everyone's story that has so much value and can help inspire other people, which is essentially what your podcast is about.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Well, and I love how you frame that. And so, I've got to ask, because coming from the radio business, right, into now having, the Amy Edwards, show, right, how from a radio, mindset and personality do you see podcasting as kind of this, kind of new way to completely express yourself? I mean, this is, there's no rules, there's no limits, right? It's a completely different kind of perspective. But I've often wondered how radio folks think about the podcasting genre.
I mean, I love it. I
Yeah.
am a huge old school fan of Howard Stern in the 90s. And
You and me both.
yeah, and that's what essentially he was doing. He was
Yeah.
having these conversations. Granted, it was like this mesh of radio and what we're doing now. We're having
Yep.
these conversations about our lives and everything. And so I think it's a wonderful natural progression. I think everybody should get a mic in front of their face and start a podcast. I don't think the market's too saturated.
No,
Stay consistent with it. Like you've got almost 200 episodes. Congratulations.
thank you.
And I mean, that's the thing. Just get consistent with it if you want to do it. If anybody's listening to this and wants to start a podcast, then absolutely you should do it. I'm going to be creating a podcast course actually later this
Oh,
year.
nice.
Yeah, and, I've been doing it since 2014, and I it felt like a natural progression to me with radio,
Yep.
and I could see how some radio people might not be into it, but the radio people I know are,
Yeah.
definitely are. They have embraced this medium, and it's not going anywhere. The podcast market is only growing, and I love that about it, and I'm
That's
hoping
awesome.
to see a lot more women in this space too. I feel like maybe it's been a little out of balance. So I'm excited to see more women, and I just love it.
I love that. It is a great, amazing experience. I mean, I have learned so much about myself just doing it, right? And when I first started, I'm like, who really wants to hear from me? I'm not sure I have enough to say. I'm not sure that there's, anything of relevance that anybody will care about. And now that I've done that for as long, I haven't done it as long as you have, but I've I really feel like it really pushed me. It forced me to kind of push the boundaries a little bit of my own self-confidence and really find my true voice, and I, like you said, I think when people get a mic in front of them and they just start speaking their truth, it is one of the most empowering things you can truly experience.
You're so right, and good for you for doing it because you put yours out every other week. Is that correct?
Yeah, pretty close. Yeah, I've tried to be a little bit more consistent. Wasn't always that easy for me to do it because I run three companies, and so my time is super limited. But I just started building it into my schedule, and what I've really done is tried to expand it to meet great people like yourself and bring awareness to people that are out there creating positive ripples to my audience, and that has allowed this thing to really take off, which has been so much fun. But yeah, I try and be consistent. I try and get episodes out, with regularity because I enjoy it. And probably like you, I actually do it all myself. So that you don't have anybody in the background that's doing all my editing and all that stuff. I put it out there and just try and be as honest about the conversations that we have as we possibly can. And just I love it.
So awesome. Good for you. Well, I was going to tell people too, that's a little bit more of a sustainable, consistent path because a week comes
Yep.
around pretty often.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've done it all. I've had teams that have done it for me. I was with a podcast network that folded last year. And,
Oh,
again, that's one of those things that's hard in the moment. Like
yeah.
literally, I got an email from them that was like, today will be your last day to record here and we can't edit it. I was like,
Oh no.
okay. And so luckily I am already a sound and audio professional, so I
Yep.
can handle it. But, I had to reframe that into the best thing that could have happened for me.
Yeah.
And so it's given me opportunities to improve my show in a lot of ways. And I've embraced that. And
Yeah.
again, that's that, like, you could call it looking at the positive maybe, but I think it's an ultimately a reframe.
Yeah.
And so you can reframe anything that you're doing, like, oh, this podcast is hard to put out, like for you, because it's
Yep.
another thing on your list.
Yep.
Or this podcast really facilitates more conversations and opening up voices and is having believing in that ripple effect too.
Yeah.
So it's all about how you frame things, I think, a lot of times too. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like, do I had to change my attitude about from I have to I get to. And, like with you, I don't have that background or experience that you've got in, being an audio and visual expert. I had to learn the tools. I had to play with them a little bit. And that actually was the thing especially during COVID when we were kind of forced to, be on our
Mhm.
own, that I really, really found as a great distraction, a great opportunity to kind of push myself to learn new things and new approaches. And I really love it. I mean, it's part of where I get my energy and my enthusiasm for a lot of things. And like you said, just these opportunities to interview all these different individuals and create those positive ripples where I can has been really phenomenal. So I've had a great time.
Yeah.
Tell our audience a little bit about your show though, because I mean the thing that I
Okay.
love about it is you have such a wide variety of guests, and I mean you are an absolute bomb when it comes to like doing the interviews. You're so good, so engaging, and I mean, I can't turn it off. I love listening to it.
Wow. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And I wanted to just call back to what you were just saying too about starting out with your podcast and everything like that. Like, I think that that's so beautiful. That's one of the things that really keeps us playful and young is when we can embrace and reframe into like, oh, I'm learning and isn't
Yeah.
this great, rather than
Yes.
like, I'm 50, what the hell am I doing, like, why don't I know this,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah. I agree
like,
100%. Yeah.
yeah, that's a crucial reframe. I've got 2 courses out now about youthfulness and agelessness and radiance, and that's one of the things that's so important because it's not all this stuff we're searching for outside of
Yeah.
ourselves. It's about, you know, retaining this really playful beginner mindset and the beauty of that, and like that's a good thing. That can be a very good thing. And so no matter
Absolutely.
what you're jumping into, right?
Well, I
So,
mean, you touch on something. I had a guest on last year, Jeffrey Davis, best-selling author that wrote a book called Tracking Wonder. And what was amazing about that is he's of our age, and he is all about how to at any level of your life, but really as you get older, getting back to figuring out how to tap into that young genius that we all have, right? That person that will embrace change, that will go learn something new, and just how it can have such a positive impact in so many different areas of your life, right? So, like you touch on, and what you do through your courses, I mean, you're really encouraging people to really embrace that, and really, you walk away from those things feeling really truly proud of yourself that you've been able to, experience something new, and you have yourself to, give the credit to.
well, thanks. Yeah, you do when you start something. And, as far as like this youthfulness and this agelessness, like when you're doing those things and starting something, beginning something, learning something, you're connecting different neural pathways. You're making
Yeah.
new neural connections. And I know David Sinclair's been doing a lot of research on this, and they've had some groundbreaking research lately about reversing aging. And really, it was about these neural pathways and
Yep.
creating new connections. And so those all feed into this radiance and this like embracing of life and this
Yeah.
glow that we're looking for, you know?
Yep.
And so back to your question, which was tell about my show. Like
Yep.
that's essentially what my show's about. It's about okay, you can take it or leave it no matter what it is, but I try to frame every conversation with like how to X. Like
Yeah.
the most recent one that came out is how to find effortless style. One I've got coming out very soon. I'm not sure when this is coming out, but is how to use human design to better your life. And I didn't know much about human design, and she gave just some really amazing tips. And so I like just speaking to a wide variety of people that are
Yep.
going to help us get a little bit closer with every conversation to our best self, right? To that next version of us that maybe has more neural connectivity, maybe, some fresh neural connectivity, some um, just new ideas, some new zest for life,
Yeah.
something that feels good and is saying yes to life, rather than feeling in that darkness, which we can all succumb to every now and then.
Yeah, I love that. No, and you do an excellent job of really a wide range of different talents that you bring onto the show, and being
Thank
able
you.
to pull every one of those guests, pull some really solid, takeaways for your listeners. So I know why the
Thank
podcast is so
you.
popular and so great and well received. Talk about Amy Edwards as the brand, though. I mean, you really have like blown up in a big way. I think in terms of what you're doing with the programs, and where do you see yourself kind of taking this this next phase of your business and approach?
Funny thing to hear, like I think that we have such a tendency to compare ourselves and you're like, "Oh, am I? What am I?" And like so thank you for
You're
saying that
welcome. Of
because
course.
there's a part of me that just gets in the day to day, just like
Yep.
you.
Yep.
If you're running three companies, you're in your day to day and it's hard to step out and see. And
Yeah.
so then when you hear someone say that, you're like, "Oh my gosh, okay. Do I receive that or do I
Yeah.
go no?" Like where do you fall in that? So I want to receive that and say thank you. So I was a little bit like eyes glazed over when I was listening. So the question is, you were asking about the brand and what's going on. Is that what it
Yeah.
was?
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you. Yeah, you know what? This year, I've finally stepped into making courses. And I think I say finally because I've wanted to do it for a long time, but it just reached a point where it really flowed. I had a radio job here in Austin for the Austin American Statesman up until last August. And
Oh
the
wow.
Statesman, yeah, we had a streaming radio station, several. And I say we, not really we anymore. And the Statesman closed down their audio department, which was
Yeah.
really unfortunate because it
Yeah.
started like before the pandemic and it was really cool. But there was a part of me that knew that's not what I'm supposed to be doing. That's not
Yep.
what I'm supposed to
Yeah.
be spending my time on. You know how we know those things sometimes? And so when that stopped in August, I decided to create these courses and I would finally have time to do that. And so that is my purpose in life is to consolidate all these things that I'm talking about in the show. Because you can watch the show and
Yeah.
get all the information that I'm talking about because I talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
But my course is basically consolidated all. So it's right there for you. And you can go, okay, like the smaller course that's free is called Ageless Mindset. Look younger, feel happier in half an hour. And legitimately, like you will start to reframe things. There's just a lot of
Yep.
little mental tricks that you can start applying right away and you're going to feel better. And these are all things that I do all the time. So they're practices. So that's why these are life-changing principles because it all starts within. As you know, as we've
Yeah.
been talking about,
Yep.
it all starts within. And so the more work you do on yourself, the better life's going to look outside. And so that is what this is all about. So the bigger course, the one that's for sale, the Ageless Mindset is a piece of this bigger course called the Youthfulness Hack, how to reverse aging fast and create a new radiant you. And that's what I'm all about. I'm really
Yeah.
not about youthfulness per se, but I am about radiating and feeling our best. And no matter what, like maybe you feel like you want to lose 20 pounds or whatever it is, you know what? You're still gonna find ways to feel good right now in
Yeah.
this body, in this version of you,
In this
not
moment. Yeah.
waiting for X
Yeah.
to happen,
Yep.
right?
I
And
love that.
so yeah, so that's what it's all about. And so I have 9 segments in there. I cover things like sleep and my own sleep hacks and just like I'm a sleep freak. That's why I brought that one up first. But like how you prep during the day for sleep, what your bedtime rituals are, how, not to hit snooze, like the actual effects that that can have on you, the things to repeat in your head when you're falling asleep and waking up, sleep hacks like mouth taping and light and screens and stuff that
Yep.
we know, but then it's consolidated here and you're like, oh yeah, okay, I can get this down and I can get these into practices. And it takes a little time to implement everything. I mean, I've been working on all this stuff for 5 years. So since about 2018, when I really started delving into like me.
Yeah.
And so anyway, the idea was just to get it all in one place and accelerate the learning curve for anyone that really wants to. And it's not that hard. And it doesn't take a ton of time. And it costs less than Botox.
Well, I mean, you got me sold. I mean, that's it.
Good,
I
good.
think a lot of
It's for
people
men
will.
too,
I mean,
men,
that's
women,
awesome.
anybody, literally anybody. I feel like my kids could get a lot of this out of
Yeah.
this. Like literally anyone.
That's fantastic. What do you think the best thing about being the entrepreneur that you are now? I mean, what's the best thing when you look at this and say, "Gosh, I've done this, other career path. I've had all these, kind of, traditional approaches to, earning a paycheck, but now you can just see as an entrepreneur, you're just like you're doing what you are destined to do. So what's the best part of that?
Hmm. I think it's getting to talk to people, like having conversation with you right now and getting to learn from people. And I think the best part is just meeting more people and opening up and knowing that I can feel good.
Yeah,
That is part of it, that you can follow your life purpose, even if you don't know it right now. Follow what's in your heart and you can trust that it's going to work out. And I think the older that I get, the more I am able to accept that trust,
yeah,
accept that it's all going to be okay because it is.
yeah.
And that's a leap a lot of times. And that's maybe been the best part for me is learning that and trusting that. And I have my moments,
We all
where
do.
it's
Yeah,
not
of course.
but I think like probably a lot of entrepreneurs, you have to take that leap.
Yeah.
You have 3 businesses. I mean,
Yeah.
like what? Like you're leaping all over the place. So yeah, you just start to trust the leap that the
Yeah.
landing's going to be okay.
Yeah. Well, that's every good entrepreneur, you've got to trust in yourself and you got to
Yeah.
be, committed to the path forward because otherwise you won't get there.
That's right. You really do. If you're holding on to what's behind you, you're just going to, fall into the hole rather than leap across.
Ex-
So, just to keep with our
exactly.
analogy.
I love that. So the next 5 years, what does that look like for your business? What do you want that to look like?
I mean, personally, I'd like to be the female Joe Rogan. So that's like, I'd
I
like to
love it.
be that level of podcaster
Yeah.
because really for me, I read a book called The One Thing. Have you read that
Uh-huh.
book?
Yeah. Yeah. Gary Keller.
Gary Keller,
Yep.
yes. And so he talks about what's the one thing you can do to really elevate what you want to be doing. And for me, that's my podcast, right? That's my thing I'm going to do no matter what.
Yeah.
And so as I delved into that idea of the one thing, I read that book a couple years ago too,
Yeah.
and his was writing a book. And so the one thing I could do, I realized like create a course and share all this in a consolidated way and show my expertise at it and really get that message out and help people change their own lives. And then people are listening to my podcast. And
Yeah.
that's really like that's my one thing. And so that is my next 5 years. I think that's what it is. I'm enjoying creating these courses, and I am feeling like it's coming easily and naturally to me. And so that's a good place to find that flow.
That's
And
awesome.
so yeah, and so I don't really know where the next 5 years will lead me. One of my daughters is graduating high school. 5 years from now, my second daughter will be graduating. And, I'm going to Africa for the first time in a month with my significant other, Justin Wren, and he has a foundation called Fight for the Forgotten that helps the pygmy tribes in Africa, namely Congo and Uganda. So I don't know, like we have a dream to start part of Fight for the Forgotten called Fight for Her as a women's initiative.
Yeah.
And like that is something I've always dreamed of. I had no idea how it would ever happen. And then suddenly I'm with someone who does that. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, and it's basically handed to me. And I'm like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, this is what I've dreamed of. And so I hope that, through building all these things that I'm building, that I can really truly give back and really truly make the world a better place. Yes, it starts with us, but then how much are we giving? I'm kind of tearing up a little bit. It feels really good, like
Yeah.
to talk about this. So thank you for asking this. So long term, that's what Justin and I are looking to build, and that's the impact that I hope to have on a lot of people.
Well, and like you said, you got to trust that path, right? I mean, that's why it feels good. That's why you're a little bit emotional about it.
Yeah, I mean, 5 years ago, or probably 3 or 4 years ago, I started making voice memos because 'cause I'm really into voice. I started making
You
voice
and me, we
memos
have
of,
a
like,
lot in common, actually. I
yeah,
do the same, and I'm the youngest as well. So,
I love it. Well, have you ever tried this? So this would be called an audio vision board, so an audio board,
oh
essentially.
yeah,
And
okay,
so you just record yourself talking about what your day is like and all the blessings and abundances you have. Right. So I recorded one of these, and I mean, I was single at the time. I don't even think I was done with my divorce. Right. And so I had, a dream partner and like a dream home and all these things. Right. And like I went through my day and how I was feeling. I haven't listened to this in a while. I need to pull it up. And so one of the things in it, I listened to it maybe a year ago, and when we started talking about Fight for Her, and in there, I even said, and I have a nonprofit that helps women in so many countries, and and I was saying this stuff, and I'm
wow,
like, I literally had nothing on the table for that, and so I played it for Justin, and I was like, this is wild, right? Like I didn't even
yeah,
know how that would come about, and so all those envisioning things that we do can have an impact in our subconscious and what we draw toward us that is really unexpected. So I need to listen to that again, like today. And then, because I don't have the house yet, there's a lot of things in it that haven't happened yet, but maybe when we see little things, it's signs that they're all in motion.
yeah, and they're all coming. Yeah, like you said, a lot. There's a lot of value in speaking it into existence, right? So,
Yeah.
I've never
Yeah.
even heard of that term of audio vision board, but what a
I made it
phenomenal activity. Yeah, I mean, I will give you credit from now on, but I'm going to share this with a couple of friends that I know will be all over that. I love
Yeah,
that.
good. Oh, good. I'm so glad. Like, let that
See, you're
ripple
creating
out.
those
Like, they can
ripples.
have credit. I don't care. Let it
Well,
be a thing, right?
one of the things I love to do with all my guests is I like to ask, some just ripple-esque questions, if you don't mind. I mean, they're
Okay.
just give you a little bit more insight in, our audience, a little bit more insight into who Amy Edwards is. But what's the best piece of advice you've received that you still use today?
Okay. The one that just jumped to my mind is that my dad told me if you ever loan money, don't ever expect it back. Just let it go. And that is amazing advice. I learned the lesson very cheaply when I was like 22 for like $300 or $200, whatever it was.
Yep.
And I just, somebody was just in trouble the other day, and I gave them some money, and And I was like, you know what? I just happen to have the money to do it right now. And she was like, I'll pay you back. And I was like, you know what? No, just like I literally will forget. And that's the thing, if you can allow yourself just to forget. So I know that's a really totally different bit of advice, but it actually really does help you because you're not going to hold on to any resentment. You will literally forget. So anytime you loan money, let it go. Don't ever expect it back, and it will maintain that friendship better too. And oftentimes they do end up paying you back, and then you're like, "What? Why are you giving me this?" You know.
Yeah.
And so that's some random really good
Yeah,
advice.
but
Just
that's
let you
really good advice. I actually had a friend that just shared something very similar to me that they had lent somebody some money and they were really down to like literally like their last $50, but this person was in a big jam and they're like, I have the money, I'm going to give it. And
know.
she said, you know, of course they had the exchange like, hey, you know, just pay me back whenever. And then she had sort of like this, as she kind of called it, a cathartic moment where in the middle of the night, she woke up and said, don't worry about that money because more is coming your way. So she called this friend the next day and said, hey, don't pay me back. I don't want you to feel obligated to pay me back. I'm in a good place. Don't worry about it. And next thing they know, they got a promotion at work and they were like got like a big raise. I mean, it was really, you know, interesting. So your dad's advice pays off, right? So
Wow, that's
that's
such
cool.
a cool story. That's
Yeah,
amazing. But it really is powerful when you can just let it go. And it's diving into further that trust,
it
that
does.
trust that
Yeah,
we're always abundant. Like if our love can't run out, why are we limiting ourselves and thinking our abundance can run out?
that's right.
And I'm talking to myself here too,
Yeah,
just as much as anybody else. And so it's just a practice of reminding yourself and coming back to that I'm safe, I'm secure, I'm taken care of. It's all
that's
going to be
right.
all right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Great advice. Great advice. What is your superpower, Amy?
Mm, I'm going to go with my voice. Yeah. I'm going to
Yeah,
go with my voice, which actually is probably more like a presence in the moment and an actual listening and being here. So, yeah.
that's a great superpower
But
for
I mean,
sure.
like, if I could have an actual superpower, I always really like Magneto. I thought he had a really cool one.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that would be a good one for sure.
What about you?
Oh, mine is my desire to connect people, right? You know, the ability to see a
Yes.
talent, or maybe something that somebody doesn't recognize in themselves, and sort of be able to shine a light on it, but say this other person needs to know you because of that, right? So that piece of the connecting is really critical for me because I really love that piece, and you know, I've been able to get people together that have gone off and started amazing companies or have turned into great friendships or great romantic relationships, and you can always kind of go back and say, you know, I had something to do with that. So I'd say that's
Yeah.
probably my
Oh, that's a good
superpower.
one.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
thank you for asking. That's cool.
Yeah.
What's the best thing a client or a colleague could say about you?
Oh my gosh. I think you've said everything in this podcast. Like, really, like, um, the trick for me is receiving it, hearing it, and allowing myself to believe it because instead I start running through all the things that aren't that.
Yeah,
So, I think that I helped them open up, that I helped them, become that next best version. Like that's the ultimate compliment to me. Like,
yeah,
oh, you had this impact on my life. If you ever read a review of your show or something that just someone you don't even know writes and you're
yeah,
just like,
yeah.
what?
It was like the best gift ever, right?
100%. I mean, like, it really does. And I mean, anyway, that's the ultimate compliment.
I love it. I love it. Where do you find your inspiration? Because you are such a positive, upbeat person, and you've obviously rippled your way to some amazing guests for your podcast, and been able to, you know, attract some incredible people into your life. But you know, where do you, when you know, kind of think about it, where do you draw upon your inspiration?
I literally let everything inspire me all the time. It's the way they talk about gratitude,
Yeah,
the way that gratitude is spoken about. Like you can train yourself to get grateful all the time. You can train yourself to find inspiration all the time. But I have habits that feed this too. I have habits where I read every day, where I'll quiet my mind, where I'm seeking out some things that are new, where I will shut off my phone when I find myself comparing or falling into something negative,
Yep.
right? If I'm finding myself not inspired. I did that just today, as a matter of fact. And I was like, all right, I can tell my mind's taken a turn, and I just shut it down. And so I do train myself to find inspiration though all the time. And just I keep a lot of notes on my notes app on my phone. And
Yep.
so I have one called Daily Magic, and it's to help with my TikTok or anything, my YouTube. And so I'll just constantly keep ideas in there, just anything that comes up, even if you see something on social media, if you heard something in this podcast. There's a
Yeah.
great book by Austin Kleon called, that I'm sure you know, called Steal Like an Artist.
Yeah. Yep.
And yeah, and it's a lot about finding inspiration everywhere and then taking it and making it your own in the most creative way. And
Yep.
so I think that that feeds a lot of what I do. I trust that I can hear that, get inspired, and make it my own. You don't have to rip it off verbatim, you know? It's going to come through your mind, your voice, your chakras and like your light, and it's going to translate into your own version. I mean, and literally I have found it everywhere. One day I used to be an independent rock and roll artist, and I don't know if you knew that about me. And so in like around age 40, and one day I was recording a song, and I had an appointment in the studio with my producer AJ Vallejo, and he was like, you need to have, this pre-chorus written and blah blah blah, like for this song called Get Live that we were doing. And I remember driving toward his studio, and I thought, I don't have anything today. I like literally didn't have anything. And so I turned on the radio because I was like, I gotta come up with this pre-chorus. And I kind of had some words, like I had like wake you, shake you. And so that song by, like, I think it's like Montel Jordan came on, and it was like, "This is how we do
Y-
it." You know
Yeah.
that song?
Yep. Yep.
"This
Yep.
is
Yep.
how we do it." Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, "This is a really popular song. This is catchy. This is how we do it." And so I just took that. I literally took that. I got there, and I was like, I think it goes like, "Wake you, shake you all the time." Like, and I just took that. And so I made it my own. I didn't tell AJ because I was like, I don't even want to tell him I wasn't prepared. We're really good friends. But like, when the song finally came out, I think I was like, "Do you know what I did?" I was like, and he was like, "Totally worked,
That's
absolutely,"
awesome.
because any musician is like picking things up all the time. But just trust that you can find it wherever, and
Yeah.
like that example always just cracks me up.
Oh, that's awesome. I actually was just watching, CBS this morning yesterday, actually, and they had Smokey Robinson that was on, and I I wish I was could remember what the song is. It's one of his popular ones. He had a ton of them, right? But he he was stuck on a line and he couldn't figure it out, and he was shaving. And he's like, inspiration comes when you least expect it, oftentimes, right? If you ask for it, and he's trying to figure out this final part of this verse that he's trying to do, and he's like, all of a sudden it came to him, it was the tears that oh my
Tears of
gosh.
a Clown, or
Yeah, not Tears of the Clown, but he was talking about tears cutting oh my gosh. I'll think of it. I'll post a link to this on the
yeah,
episode. But yeah, he was talking about it cutting, lines in your face, or canyons in your face or something. I don't know what it was, but it's one of his popular songs. I feel horrible. But it was just funny how you said that today, but he had just said that yesterday. And those things just happen, and they just pop up when, if you're open to receiving it, right? And you're open to
right.
looking for it, they'll just happen.
Yeah, I mean, like, I just was literally like, "Give me anything right now," and, uh, life will come through for you, and you can train yourself to do it. So, start building the habits, of course, but also just train yourself to look all the time, and it's going to
Absolutely.
be there, whether it's a conversation with your kid or something you just randomly see on TV. I mean, it doesn't matter,
Yeah.
we're always being shown things for a reason, and the more you start to believe that, the more it starts to align.
And I love your attitude about looking for it in everything. I think that I'm learning something from you today. I'm going to start approaching things from a completely different perspective in that regard.
What
Yeah.
in what regard?
No, just that you look for inspiration in everything, because
Oh,
sometimes we just get sort of
great.
stuck in our, mundane worlds, right? We don't often look for inspiration.
Yeah.
We may hear it or see it, or we are exposed to something online about it, but if you look at the inspiration in the moment, I liked how you phrased it. You look for all those things that come up. It's just a completely different and a refreshing way to look at life.
It really is. It's a lot more fun,
Yeah,
you know, than thinking there's no inspiration around because there's a lot of
absolutely.
stuff going on. So you might as well just have some fun with it because
Absolutely.
ugh,
Well, and I'm
otherwise
gonna
it's just
find that
exhausting.
interview and I'll send it to you so that you'll
Okay.
get a kick out of it because of the,
Yeah.
the tie-in for the lyric. Well, last two questions. What do you think
Okay.
the ripple effect means in your mind? What do you think? What is it? What does the ripple effect mean to you?
It means that we never know. You never know. So stay conscious in all that you do because you just never know. You
I
never
love
know not only what that person's going through, but you
it. Yep.
just don't know how one little thing is going to resonate with that person, or maybe they're going to use it just like we were talking about as their inspiration and carry it forward. You just never know. We
Yep.
don't know how anything is ending up. So just trust that you're having that effect, that you're because it's happened to you too,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like
Oh, yeah.
big time. So that's what it means to me. So I love the title because I am a massive believer in it.
Oh, I love it. Well, you're definitely a true rippler. So, with that in mind, what ripples could I be creating for you?
Do I get a button or do I get like a
I, I,
hat?
uh, yes, I will get you your own button.
Good. Yes, we need to wear like a I'm a rippler button.
I love
So
it.
what was the question? Sorry.
So, what ripples can I create for you?
Oh, wow. I think you're doing it right now. I mean, like, anytime that we're amplifying our voices, like, thank you for this opportunity and for, connecting with me. But I think that anytime, so I'll ask you this, but I think this is something I say on my show at the end of every show. And that's that anytime you just think of that little thing that reminds you of someone, or that little thing, just send it to them
Yeah.
rather than resisting that urge. Like, that's a cool ripple. So if you meet someone that, like, oh, they'd be so great on Amy's show, or she'd be great on there, it's like, I got to introduce them.
Yep.
Then that's it. That's your superpower anyway. So it comes naturally, right?
Done. I'll
But
do it.
yeah, I say this at the end of my show though, and I'm like, if someone came up in your mind during this show, send it to them.
Yeah.
Have a conversation around it because
It's
then
great.
once they have the conversation, I'm out of it, right?
Yeah.
And then they're having this conversation, and then maybe during that conversation they think of someone else, and then they send it to them, and then they tell two friends, and then they tell two friends.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And it just
So
ripples on.
right.
That's right. I love that. That's awesome. Well, tell my audience really quickly how you would like them to follow you, because you've got all these different, ways that you've got on the website, and you're on all the different social platforms. But share which ones you'd most like them to follow you on.
Well, I'm really easy to find and find all this stuff at amyedwards.info. And that's AMY, just like it sounds. And so that one has like links to everything, the show and everything. But Instagram also, my link in bio can lead you to that. And you can find everything, my website, and then all the other stuff. So I on my Instagram, I'm at real Amy Edwards, and I would love to connect with everyone. So thank you so much. And yes, just listen to the show, please. And then I do have my new courses out. They're also available at that same little link, amyedwards.info, and it's the Youthfulness Hack and the Ageless Mindset. So yeah.
Love it. Awesome. Well, everybody be sure to go check out all of that. Sign up for Amy's got some amazing courses, like she said, just being engaged with what she's doing out there in the world to make a difference. I mean, she's creating some positive ripples. Amy, thank you so much for being on the Ripple Effect podcast. I am so grateful that you agreed to do this.
Hey, ripple on.
Ripple on. I love
I
it.
beat you to it. Thank you so
Awesome.
much for having me. Thank you so
Uh,
much for having me. It was a
Thank you
great
so
time.
much. It was awesome.